Hello and welcome. Indian engineering is going through three waves. The first was about doing mess for less. The second is about creating products and services that are engineered for the Indian market. The second is about using those skills and talents to create products and services that can be exported out of India. Let's view all of this in the context of the construction and heavy engineering industry, something that our guest Samir Yajnik, President Global Services and Chief Operating Officer Asia Pacific for Tata Technologies looks after. Samir, thank you very much for speaking with us. So the three waves, I hope I got that right, beginning with less, mess for less.
I'll just say it in a different way. We used to go to the world and say, we can do your mess for less, right? But we were not eradicating their mess, which is we were not innovating for them, we're not creating something new for them. That was our entry point based on the cost arbitrage. The second wave is really about creating great products for the Indian market itself, because that's on a boom. And specifically you mentioned construction, heavy engineering, that's really going to exponentially grow given our infrastructural needs. And then the third one would be, wouldn't it be great if we can make wonderful products for India and actually export them to not only developing markets, but also developed markets, something we call reverse innovation.
Right. So give me an example of the first and second first.
Okay. So in the early days, and I'm going to make this somewhat ambivalent as to what that is, we went in and said, well, look, Mr. Automotive Company, you're making new cars and platforms all the time. Why don't we help you with your NVH durability and crash work? Because we've got great CAE engineers. So kind of a horizontal
noise, vibration
and harshness. So why don't we create kind of a horizontal team which helps you with your different platforms? So we've done that for many years now. But the point being that since Tata Technologies grew up from the automotive world, and as we acquired the right type of talent to help us build a complete end-to-end proposition, we very quickly were able to then say, listen, why don't we be your partners and help you not only conceive a new product for a different market segment, but help you collaboratively with you to help analyze, design, engineer, bring it to manufacture, of course, and bring it to market, and then also help you analyze what your product, what your customers are saying for you, what kind of experience they want, and bring that back into the loop. So an end-to-end partnering ability.
So that leads
that would lead us to the second one. That having built that capability, and I just want to say that Tata Technologies, we make a very concerted effort. Whatever we do in whichever industry we operate, whether it be automotive, aerospace, or more recently construction, heavy engineering, we deliberately ensure that we have that ability to partner end to end. So coming back to the second point, now that we have this ability, Mr. Customer, you're looking to grow to in the Indian market, and in the construction heavy engineering case in specific, the infrastructure needs a huge. You need huge number of backhoe loaders, excavators, wheel loaders, also agro equipment, farm equipment, etc. There are all kinds of different requirements in the Indian context. The load cycles are different. The needs for that machinery are very different. They use it for more purposes. They use it longer. They actually mix kerosene sometimes with petrol. And so
I was going to ask you a fuel question.
So it's needed for a whole different gamut of requirements. And so why don't we help you build a product for the Indian market that's very relevant, that's frugally thought of, frugally engineered, so that it's at a price point which is relevant for the Indian context, but it has only that functionality which is relevant for the Indian
So give
market.
us an example of something you've done.
There are many examples, but I think
you can.
The nano one is a known one.
Sure.
But more recently we are one which we are not permitted to tell you who it is, but it's a Japanese company. We are helping them with a specific product in the construction heavy engineering space, where we started with benchmarking where their product should be actually positioned in the market. We're helping them understand both the weight calculations, the cost calculations, and what should be the different subsystems that go into it. The next phase of that would be actually help them develop it for the Indian market itself. So,
right. Which comes to the third point. And how do you take all this and start exporting it as a firm product?
Yeah, I think what's happening with and I was just, we were discussing this with the changes in the currency, with also our ability to build products in India, suddenly what's happening is that almost simultaneously wave 3 is kind of overlapping. Wave 3 being, can we not take this product and look at the business case for not only India but in the developing markets across the globe? And sometimes those products will also be relevant in the developed markets. Of course, I don't think people are building business cases which are all encompassing, but they could apply to those markets as well.
Right.
So when you're looking at product development costs, you've got to look at it at a larger frame in terms of.
And would there be an example that you can share with us?
Not in the construction heavy engineering yet, because as you probably know, we recently acquired Tata Technologies acquired Cambric in April of this year, and the whole idea being that not only in the space of systems engineering, that's end to end, but also in the space of engines, powertrain development, converting these machines that are existent in India from tier 3 to tier 4, which is what's coming. We need to ensure that we partner with OEMs and tier 1 suppliers and help them build more relevant powertrain as well.
Right. So the 3 waves that you've pointed out, and I mean, we can see where this is going. Can you put this in the context of the opportunities for the India manufacturing story?
Yeah. So let's kind of relate this to numbers, right? I mean, the overall engineering market is expected to grow pretty substantially, but then again, in the construction equipment, by 2020, we're talking about a market which is growing from 3.5 billion all the way to 20 billion. So the engineering need, which is ER&D spends are typically between 2 and 5%, is also growing exponentially. What we're trying to do with Nasscom, we're also trying to understand all the challenges, not just the engineering talent challenge, but all the challenges, the standards needs, the need for innovation, the need for operators in the construction heavy engineering space, and there we are tying up with ICEMA, etc. We're looking at an all-encompassing problem, and we're saying how can we then go after this big number? Because as there are opportunities, there are also some, you can say, hindrances or roadblocks or key enablers we need to put in place to go after the full potential.
What's the biggest roadblock?
I think it's engineering talent. So the biggest roadblock, as we went across and we spoke to a number of them, and a lot of them now work with us very closely, is we don't have the engineers. 1, 2, the engineers don't even know that this market segment exists, this industry exists. So they go out and become automotive engineers, they go out and become aerospace. What's construction heavy engineering? So to build an understanding.
It's actually interesting because construction and engineering is such a large percentage of GDP and has grown so phenomenally in the last decade.
Yes.
Or more. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually growing more than commensurately if you look at the other industries, and yet engineers don't know about it. So one is to build some generic courses, which we call FSIPD, Foundation Skills in Integrated Product Development, which is generic to all industries in the engineering space, in the product development space, but then building vertical courses that specifically make these engineers more ready to be employable.
Right.
Okay, so we're kind of working on 2 tracks on engineering talent development.
Right. So if one more to say that, okay, this is a huge growth opportunity on the demand side as well as the supply side. The supply side constraints you've pointed out, the demand side seems to be never ending. What else is missing from this piece to make this a truly critical or large part of India's sort of GDP or growth or so on?
No, I think the application of technology in the context, now there's cloud computing, there's connected vehicles, and it's got to be put in completely context of where it's going to be applied, and the whole need to innovate to make it relevant. That along with some of the other needs, which is today there are no very specific standards, neither for the operators, nor for safety, nor for emissions. I mean, emissions is coming, but it's not very clearly defined. So a clear definition of what that is, we've got to focus. I mean, if you want to go after anything, you've got to focus. So to try to bring perspectives of what those are, what are your skill gaps exactly, what are your operator gaps exactly, what are the standards that will be needed, and what applications you'll need it to. Holistically, if you have industry, academia, and bodies like Nasscom working together, we can only give it the necessary fillip that it needs to.
Right. And on the demand side, and global demand as well as India demand, creating products here or exporting them, you feel that the opportunity is huge?
India itself is huge. China, of special interest to me, is also very big. There are parts, if you have to just divide up the whole world, and there are Western companies who are very keen on developing markets as well. So we believe that this is one of the key areas of growth for the engineering community in India.
Right, Samir, thank you very much for speaking with us.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.